The Clever Hare and the Foolish Hyena. Once upon a time in a small village in Africa, there lived a hare known far and wide for his wit and cleverness. This hare could outsmart anyone in the animal kingdom. He was the master of pranks, and no one could escape his tricky ways, especially his friend, Hyena. One sunny afternoon, Hare and Hyena were strolling through the forest. Hyena, who was always hungry, said, "Hare, my friend, I'm starving. Do you know where we can find some food?" Hare, with a mischievous twinkle in his eye, replied, "Why, of course. There's a farmer nearby who has the biggest, juiciest watermelons you've ever seen. But we must be careful, he's a clever man." Hyena's mouth watered at the thought of the watermelons. "Lead the way, Hare. I trust you completely." As they reached the farmer's field, Hare suddenly stopped. "Hyena," he whispered, "the farmer is very protective of his watermelons. If you get caught, just say, 'I was only checking if they were ripe.' Trust me, it works every time." Hyena, though not the brightest, nodded enthusiastically and sneaked into the field. He found the biggest watermelon and began munching away. Suddenly, the farmer appeared out of nowhere, brandishing a stick. "What are you doing in my field, Hyena?" he shouted. Remembering Hare's advice, Hyena stammered, "I was only checking if they were ripe." The farmer, not amused, replied, "Well, it seems your teeth have done a very thorough job of checking." Hyena was chased out of the field with the farmer's stick, and when he returned to Hare, he was nursing a sore backside. Hare, struggling to contain his laughter, said, "Well, Hyena, it seems you've learned a valuable lesson about being too greedy." But Hyena was still hungry and even more determined. "Hare, you tricked me. This time, you go and get the food." Hare, always up for a challenge, agreed. "Fine, I'll do it. But I need you to cause a distraction while I grab the melons." Hyena nodded, thinking, finally, Hare will get what he deserves. Hare instructed Hyena to go to the other side of the field and make as much noise as possible. Hyena began howling, jumping, and making a huge commotion. The farmer, hearing the racket, ran towards Hyena. Meanwhile, Hare calmly walked into the field, picked the ripest watermelon, and strolled back out without a care in the world. When the farmer reached Hyena, he was so angry that he didn't listen to any excuses. He chased Hyena out of the field again, leaving him more bruised and exhausted than before. Hare, sitting under a tree and enjoying the watermelon, called out, "Hyena, you did a great job distracting the farmer. Thanks for the help." Hyena, realizing he had been tricked again, sighed and joined Hare under the tree. As they shared the watermelon, Hyena couldn't help but laugh at the situation. And so, despite being outwitted by Hare yet again, Hyena learned to laugh at himself. The two friends continued their adventures, with Hare's cleverness and Hyena's gullibility creating countless tales that were told for generations. The Watermelon Feud. One day, after being tricked one too many times, Hyena decided he'd had enough. He confronted Hare and said, "Hare, why do you always make me do the hard work while you enjoy the rewards?" Hare, always quick with a reply, smiled and said, "It's simple, Hyena. You see, I'm the brains, and you're the muscles." Hyena, confused, asked, "But if I'm the muscles, why do I always end up with the bruises?" Hare chuckled, "Because, my friend, it takes a lot of strength to run away from all the trouble you find yourself in." Hyena scratched his head and replied, "Well, in that case, I'm the strongest animal in the entire forest." Hare laughed, "And the funniest too, Hyena. Now, let's go find some more watermelons. You distract the farmer, and I'll handle the heavy lifting of the watermelon, of course." They both laughed, though Hyena wasn't entirely sure if Hare was joking or not. The next day, Hare and Hyena were back at it again. Despite his bruises and sore muscles, Hyena couldn't resist the thought of more delicious watermelons. As they approached the field, Hyena turned to Hare and said, "This time, I'll do the heavy lifting, and you can distract the farmer." Hare raised an eyebrow, surprised by Hyena's sudden burst of confidence. "Are you sure about that, Hyena? Distractions take more than just strength, you need brains too." Hyena puffed out his chest. "I've been learning from the best, haven't I? Just you watch." With that, Hyena marched boldly into the field, determined to outsmart the farmer and prove he had both brains and brawn. Meanwhile, Hare decided to wait by the edge of the field, ready to grab the watermelons as soon as Hyena caused a distraction. As Hyena neared the middle of the field, he spotted the farmer's scarecrow standing tall among the watermelons. An idea struck him. "I'll just move this scarecrow to the other side of the field to trick the farmer," he thought. "That way, the farmer will think I'm over there." Pleased with his clever plan, Hyena lifted the scarecrow and started dragging it across the field. Unfortunately, in his excitement, he didn't notice the farmer watching from the farmhouse window. The farmer couldn't believe his eyes, his scarecrow was walking away. He grabbed his stick and stormed out of the house. Hare, observing from a distance, saw the farmer heading straight for Hyena. "Oh no," Hare muttered, "Hyena's going to need more than just muscles to get out of this one." Just as the farmer reached the middle of the field, Hyena turned around, expecting to see the farmer chasing after the scarecrow. Instead, he found himself face to face with the angry farmer, who was now even more furious. "Hyena! What in the world are you doing with my scarecrow?" the farmer yelled. Thinking quickly, Hyena blurted out, "I was just helping it find a better spot to scare the birds. You know, over there where the watermelons are riper." The farmer, though still angry, couldn't help but laugh at Hyena's absurd explanation. "You really think you're clever, don't you?" the farmer said, shaking his head. "Well, let's see how clever you are when you're running from my stick." Hyena didn't need to be told twice. He dropped the scarecrow and took off running, with the farmer hot on his heels. Hare, seeing his chance, darted into the field and quickly gathered the biggest watermelons he could carry. As he made his escape, he couldn't help but chuckle at Hyena's antics. Well, he did cause a distraction, Hare thought to himself, though maybe not the one he intended. Later, as the sun began to set, Hare found Hyena sitting under the tree, panting and exhausted, but still smiling. "That was quite the chase, Hyena," Hare said, offering him a slice of watermelon. "But you know, you might want to stick to lifting watermelons instead of scarecrows next time." Hyena laughed between bites of watermelon. "I guess you're right, Hare. I might not be as clever as you, but I sure know how to run." They both laughed, enjoying the watermelon and each other's company, and decided that maybe, just maybe, brains and brawn made a pretty good team after all. The watermelon plot thickens: Hare, Hyena, and Tortoise. After another round of mischief, Hare and Hyena sat under their usual tree, laughing over their recent adventure. As they were about to dive into another watermelon, Tortoise slowly approached them. Tortoise, moving at his characteristic slow pace, greeted them. "Good afternoon, Hare." "Good afternoon, Hyena. I couldn't help but hear about your watermelon adventures. Mind if I join in?" Hare, always up for more fun, grinned and said, "Of course, Tortoise. But you'll have to keep up. We move fast." Hyena chuckled. "Yeah, Tortoise, you'll need more than wisdom to keep up with us." Tortoise, with a knowing smile, replied, "Sometimes, it's not about how fast you move, but how smartly you plan." Intrigued, Hare asked, "So, what's your plan, Tortoise?" Tortoise sat down slowly, his eyes twinkling with a hint of mystery. "I've noticed the farmer only checks the field during the day. At night, he leaves his scarecrow to guard the watermelons. What if we go at night?" Hare and Hyena exchanged glances, surprised by Tortoise's suggestion. "But it's dark at night," Hyena said, scratching his head. "How will we see the watermelons?" Tortoise chuckled softly. "Leave that to me. I have a trick up my shell that will light the way. But you both need to follow my lead." Though skeptical, Hare and Hyena agreed. They waited until nightfall, and as the moon rose, the three animals set off for the field. Tortoise led the way, carrying a small, glowing stone that illuminated the path. As they approached the field, the eerie silence of the night made Hyena a little nervous. "Are you sure this is a good idea, Tortoise?" he whispered. Tortoise, calm and steady, reassured him. "Trust me, Hyena. Sometimes, the slow and steady approach is the most successful." When they reached the field, Hare noticed something unusual. "Tortoise," he whispered, "the scarecrow looks different." Indeed, the scarecrow seemed to be moving slightly, as if it was alive. Hyena, now more anxious, said, "Maybe we should turn back." But Tortoise, unshaken, moved closer and inspected the scarecrow. Suddenly, he burst into laughter, which was quite rare for Tortoise. "It's just the wind, my friends. The scarecrow's hat is loose, so it's flapping around. Nothing to worry about." Relieved, Hare and Hyena followed Tortoise's lead. They quietly entered the field and began selecting the ripest watermelons. But just as they were about to leave, they heard a rustling sound from the bushes. "Who's there?" Hare whispered, his ears twitching. Out from the bushes popped Squirrel, who was known for being curious and quick. "I've been watching you three," Squirrel said, giggling. "You're lucky the farmer didn't set a trap." Tortoise, unfazed, replied, "The farmer only thinks during the day, just like Hare. But at night, he rests, just like Hyena." Hyena, offended, protested, "Hey! I do my thinking at night too." Squirrel, always playful, dashed around them, adding, "Well, if you three share those watermelons with me, I'll make sure the farmer doesn't hear a thing." Hare, who appreciated Squirrel's agility, agreed. "Fine, Squirrel. You've earned your share." As the four animals sat under the stars, enjoying the sweet watermelons, they laughed at how their different strengths and quirks had come together to make the perfect plan. Moral of the story: even the slow and steady can outsmart the fast and clever when they work together. Every animal has its strength, and true success comes from combining those strengths. The clever tortoise and the greedy farmer. Once upon a time in a small African village, there lived a farmer named Bodu, who was known for his greed and cunning ways. Bodu had the largest yam farm in the entire village, and he always boasted about how no one could outsmart him or steal from his precious farm. But in the same village lived Tortoise, who was known far and wide for his wisdom and clever tricks. Tortoise was small and slow, but his mind was sharp, and he often used it to teach the greedy a lesson. One day, as Bodu was working on his farm, he noticed that his prized yams were disappearing one by one. Furious, he decided to set a trap for whoever was stealing his yams. He dug a deep pit near the center of the farm and covered it with leaves and sticks, making it look like solid ground. Satisfied with his trap, Bodu went home, confident that he would catch the thief. The next morning, Tortoise came by, as he had been the one secretly helping himself to the yams. But Tortoise was no fool. He noticed that something was different. The ground in the middle of the farm seemed disturbed, and the leaves were laid out too carefully. Tortoise thought, "This looks suspicious. I bet Bodu has set a trap for me." Instead of turning back, Tortoise came up with a plan. He walked around the trap, gathering some stones and sticks. Then, he called out loudly, "Oh, what a beautiful morning to enjoy some of Bodu's yams. I'll take the biggest one today." Bodu, who was hiding nearby, grinned. "Aha! I've got him now," he thought. Tortoise carefully placed the stones and sticks on the covered trap, one by one. The weight caused the ground to shift, and suddenly, the trap gave way, revealing the deep pit below. But Tortoise was far from it, smiling to himself as he watched his plan unfold. Just then, he heard a rustle in the bushes. Out came Bodu, thinking he had caught Tortoise. But when Bodu saw the trap wide open with no Tortoise in sight, he was puzzled and angry. "Where is that sneaky Tortoise?" Bodu shouted. Tortoise, hiding behind a nearby bush, called out in a mocking voice, "Oh, dear Bodu, it seems your trap has failed. I hope you don't fall into your own pit." Bodu, in his anger and frustration, stomped over to the pit to inspect it. But he wasn't paying attention to where he was stepping, and before he knew it, his foot slipped on the loose dirt. With a loud yelp, Bodu tumbled into the pit he had dug for Tortoise. Tortoise chuckled to himself as he watched the farmer struggle to climb out of the pit. He stepped out from his hiding place and slowly walked to the edge of the pit, looking down at the flustered farmer. "Bodu," Tortoise said calmly, "greed and overconfidence have led you into your own trap. Perhaps next time you'll be a little wiser." Baudu, now covered in dirt and realizing the folly of his ways, sighed deeply. "You've outsmarted me, Tortoise. Please help me out of here." Tortoise, being a kind-hearted animal, found a long branch and lowered it into the pit. With much effort, Baudu finally climbed out, humbled and embarrassed. From that day on, Baudu no longer bragged about his cunning ways. He treated Tortoise and all the animals with respect, and he learned that wisdom is more valuable than greed. Moral of the story: cleverness and wisdom can outsmart even the most cunning plans. Greed and arrogance often lead to one's downfall.